G'day and welcome to the Game Day Squad NRL Fantasy Show. I'm Dill, that's Stu, and we are the Fantasy Bros. We are back once again partnering with Game Day Squad to bring you all you need to know to succeed in GDS Rugby League this season. Stu, it is Wednesday. You know what that means. Our favourite day of the week. Team lists have dropped. Some crazy teams at that have dropped as well, and I'm sure we'll talk plenty of Panthers in particular. Mate, the end of the season's almost here. We've only got 2 rounds left. Who can believe it? This round and next round, and then it's all done and dusted for the regular season. Round 25 was a pretty interesting one with some unreal tries scored, and we've had a bit of debate already about try of the season. The Milk obviously got the job done as well against the Panthers, so I feel like you're top of the moon. But how did you go in terms of GDS?
Yeah, mate. Luckily, the Raiders had a nice little win there on Friday night and made up for a bit of a disappointing weekend in terms of Game Day Squad. Yeah, didn't really get any high place finishings this week. Best finish was round 10th in that champion competition. So plenty of work to do over the last 2 weeks. And I know we say it every week, but the season's absolutely flying by. And look, the beauty about this competition is that there's still so many prizes that everyone can win weekly. But also those leaderboards are far from finalised with just those 2 rounds to go. I moved up in the 5th spot for champion, still in 2nd. Had a really good chance to sort of make up some ground on JT there in Challenger, but I didn't play Tommy Turbo. I went a little bit funky in that fullback position, and I realised if I played him, I could have snuck up on him by another 100 or so points. Closing the gap slowly. I'm just trying to get above him to get a 5th place prize card draft selection to number 4, and that might assure me of one of those gun options. But Penrith is hot on my heels as well, so who knows, I might not even hang on to 2nd in Challenger. But enough about me, mate. How did you go in round 25?
Mate, I was a bit the same as you are. Unfortunately, didn't make any of the top 20s across the comps. Thanks to that combination of Harry Grant, James Tedesco and Adam Dewey, who obviously, most coaches would have gone them as well. So I feel like, I felt the pain of a lot of coaches. Surprisingly, I did move up a spot in the Classic overall. Again, which means I'm well entrenched now in that sort of top 10 for prize cards. Obviously, I'm sitting about 16th, but due to the other coaches winning across the other competitions and the way the prize card draft is structured, only one prize card per coach across the competitions means that I've got a pretty good opportunity there. So I'm really riding these last 2 rounds. JT's straight into it. He
was lurking in the shadows.
I love it. G'day, JT. Thanks for joining us, mate. He's straight into it to have a go at you. I love it. So I'm really hoping for that prize card. I've obviously already secured one with the GDS Cup victory against that man JT. So I've got one up my sleeve, but a second one would be unreal, considering the new rule in place where coaches can only win one based on the season-long competition. I believe that's called the Fez rule, if I'm not mistaken, after he won all 4 in the NBL. Anyway, that's obviously, another competition, another way you can win. But yeah, for me, I'm aiming for that prize card.
Poor JT catching strays, and we're not even 3 minutes into the show. Look, everyone, obviously, Dill and I are continuing to have a fair bit of success around the rugby league game, but also just recently over in football as well. You might have seen Moi Moi FC and Quasi United atop the Challenger leaderboards over the past 2 weeks. So, look, the boys can do it all apparently. But make sure you're following us on Instagram, over on YouTube, TikTok as well. We're going to be ramping up the content, particularly in the off season. I'm going to give you a little bit of a sneak peek and some info as to how we might even be expanding pretty soon as well. You might have seen a couple of those sneak peeks on the Discord earlier this week. But anyone watching on the YouTube channel, we just passed over that 100 subs. We'll talk about that shortly as well. But if you're just sitting by listening to us talk about footy, make sure you click that subscribe button, please. It'll mean the world to us. And you can check us out on Spotify. I think tomorrow morning, on Thursday mornings, that show will go live there. So still not too late to get up to date with all of the Fantasy Bros picks for their rugby league squads. And we'll be venturing into some other sports pretty soon as well. So why wait now? Plenty of cash and pack prizes to be won. And make sure you're following us on our socials. That's at Fantasy Bros AU.
And don't forget, if you are signing up for the first time, use that promo code FBRL25. Get you plenty of packs, get you started, which plenty of people have done throughout the season, and they're loving GDS. Look, you did touch on that little bit of an announcement that we're going to talk about soon. But before we do, we love everyone joining us and commenting. And we've had quite a few get through that already. In terms of Sif Kanga, he was here well before anyone else at 6:40 Australian Eastern Standard Time. So love that Sif Kanga gets around us, and he's pretty keen to get that triple figures and the 104 subs that we've been aiming for. Mel, as always, is here as well. Thanks, Mel, for joining us. She was having her own little conversation with Sif earlier before we got involved in the show. So good on those couple that are here each and every week to join us. Don't forget to chuck your comments in, and we'll try and get to them throughout. Yeah, look, you did point out that bit of a teaser throughout the week, and I think we've been teasing that big announcement over the last few weeks, hinting at a couple of legends being added to our squad. So I can now announce the big announcement, I guess, that we've been really keen to get involved with, and that's we're actually expanding. We're going to start covering 3 Game Day squad sports across the 2025 and 2026 season. As most people know, we obviously cover rugby league already. Then we also do the Oz cricket, and we've done some of the world cricket in the past as well, both Stu and I. But we are adding the third sport into it, and that is we're diving headfirst into Aussie rules. Now, if you join us each and every week about our rugby league knowledge, you'd be rewarded throughout the season with some great options and some great picks. And we'll be the first to admit that we don't know a whole lot about our Aussie rules. We play, but we're not very good at it. So instead, we've decided to get a couple of legends involved. And it's my absolute pleasure to welcome 2 blokes to the Fantasy Bros squad. So introducing our newest members to the squad, and that's Ryan Pitt and Harrison as well. So we've got Pitty and Haz joining us. Welcome, boys. Welcome to the team.
Hey, boys. Thanks for having us.
Thanks for having us.
The next year or so. Do you want to talk us through, Haz, maybe starting us off, your sort of credentials around the fantasy world?
Yeah, well, first of all, just want to say massive thanks to you and Stu. Thanks for welcoming us on board with the Fantasy Bros, and can't wait to get to work alongside Pitty in the AFL space next year. So keen to get stuck in. But I'm pretty much a person that lives and breathes sport and fantasy sport, I guess you could say. Got that vested interest in, obviously, in AFL, NRL, cricket, you name it. Been playing fantasy for a couple of years now across all different platforms. AFL, AFLW, NRL, NFL, NBL. Honestly, any sport, I've probably had a crack at it. I think you could ask anyone in my family, I'd probably spend more time setting my alarm up than I do talking to them recently with all the sports that's going on. So I figured it's time to take a step into creating some content and with the Fantasy Bros. But mostly up until last year, it was mainly just for fun. Honestly, just jumping in leagues with mates and chasing head-to-head wins. But this season, I've gone all in, and I'm digging into research every week. Keeping across teams and matchups, listening to different podcasts, and looking for those little edges that make that difference across all different aspects of fantasy. So I'm still chasing that big breakout season. I've had some good results. Finished 3,900th in AFL fantasy this year, and putting me in top 2.5% of coaches, which is not as good as Pitty, and you'll hear about that shortly. But it's really been the introduction to Game Day Squad that's really sparked the fantasy sport passion this year. Started playing Game Day Squad at the start of this year and really enjoyed diving into all the different sporting options offered on the platform. The majority of the season only fielded teams in both starter and AFL and rugby league, but now the collection is growing, and I've started to enter more competitions as the season's gone on. And I'm starting to chase that top 20 overall finishing contender for league as well. I did manage to pick up some solid top 20 weekly placings across AFL and NRL this year, and I've even snagged myself, luckily, a Nathan Cleary All-Star card from the NRL Starter Cup. So, yeah, pretty pumped to put my knowledge to the test next year, each and every week, and share what I've learned and the knowledge, and hopefully help everyone out there jag a couple wins across the way alongside Pitty.
Thanks for sharing that insight, Haz. Just quickly on that Starter Cup quarterfinal place. Your background's obviously predominantly in Aussie rules, but definitely getting more involved in the rugby league this season. I think that's testament to anyone really starting out on Game Day Squad, that someone new, relatively new to the sport, who doesn't have the same amount of cards that everyone else has, was able to compete so well and get all the way to the top 8 and win themselves a pretty handy All-Star card. Was there any maybe one bit of advice that you'd give to someone starting out who was similar in your position, 6 or so months ago, how they might be able to succeed similar to how you've gone on to a bit of success already?
I'd have to say don't give up so quickly. Obviously, you got to really build that squad and try and win some weekly packs. Definitely using the Fantasy Bros referral code definitely helped as well. Get some packs in and build that squad depth. So those are probably the two things. Don't quit so early, and definitely take some time to build the squad up and build those player depths in all the different positions. So just don't give up so early, and might take a couple seasons to get going and really build that squad depth.
Yeah, beautiful. Thanks for sharing that, mate. And Pity, welcome aboard. Has mentioned that you've had some success in AFL fantasy this season. You're flying there, and some of that's translating across to GameDay squad as well. You want to give us a rundown on your fantasy background?
Yeah, probably. I wouldn't say flying. I just realised I don't have a hat on either, the Fantasy Bros hat, so I might put that on. I had a good season. I'm a bit like Haz. Like, I haven't really sort of taken fantasy too seriously previously. Like, last year was my first year really absorbing content and actually trying to go for what my ranking is at the end of the year. I learned a lot of lessons last year, and I was able to apply them, thankfully, this year. And Harry would say I was kissed, but worked really hard and got that, top 1,600, which is probably my best ranking at the end of the year, which is, in the top 1% of coaches. There's still a few things I'll probably look to do a bit differently next year, but that's all part of the fun. So I've played a lot of AFL Fantasy Classic. As I said, that's been the main sort of thing I've done. I haven't done a lot of other sports like Harry. I'm sort of just that AFL focused sort of fantasy coach. Been jumping in the league though in GDS, which has been good. So I've just been listening to you guys every Wednesday night, and basically whoever you've said, I've been trying to throw in my team and see how that goes, and that's been a bit of fun. So I've loved GDS this year. Like, that's been such an awesome platform, I think, for fantasy sports, and I think what's better than footy cards and fantasy? Like, there's no better combo. Probably the only other third thing would be just prizes on top. Hey, that's pretty good. So been pretty good this year with a few placings in Aussie Rules Contender. A few fourth places, a third place this week, which is awesome. I was stoked with that. So that secures me my first All-Star card. Just been really enjoying that, and I'm looking forward to next year where I can sort of start at the beginning of the season with everyone and sort of see what I can do in terms of that season ranking for next year.
And we've got it up there on the screen, mate. But any highlights in the packs that from the last couple of weeks?
Under mine, probably the main one is that Cole Palmer there. That was pretty good. I had to do probably 3 or 4 looks at the computer screen first to see that it was first legend I'd sort of packed, and for it to be Cole Palmer of all players in the EPL. Like, I thought that's probably one of the best things I've seen for a while. So I was really happy with that.
Unreal.
Yeah, let's hope that that form picks up a little bit. Still got a long season to go, but he hasn't sort of started those heights that we probably wanted him to be at.
Absolutely. Seems interesting, the EPL scoring too. I think it's been quite volatile those first 2 weeks. I think a couple of my squads have really struggled. Copying a few zeros. So be interesting to see how the rest of the season pans out.
Yeah, it's a long season though. 38 rounds or something like that. Plenty to play for over the next 30 odd rounds. Boys, thank you so much for joining us. Look, we're going to let you go, but just before we do, there is an AFL game on tonight, and how good is midweek footy? And the boys over at GDS are running a little competition there with that. So I'm going to put you on the spot. Whether it's both of you or each take a turn, who do you think is going to have a massive game tonight, and who might be a bit of a pod that you're looking at playing? Pity, do you want to kick us off?
Yeah, happy to. I think, thanks to Hastings Hornets, I think it was, who got this up tonight. I think it's a great idea, because I probably wasn't going to watch it otherwise, to be honest. It gives me a bit of an incentive now, and thanks to GDS for getting on board with the prizes. I think it's going to be a really interesting competition tonight, because there'll be a lot of really similar teams. I think a lot of teams will be playing, your Andy McGraths and your Zach Merritts, your Noah Andersons, your Matty Rouse. There'll be a lot of really common players. So I think the teams that will come first, second, and third will be those ones that can nail their pod picks, particularly like that F6, F7, D6, D7, those sorts of players. And one particular player that I think could sort of fit that bill nicely. I haven't seen his name getting around a lot in the Discord chats. I haven't seen him in a lot of teams. Joel Jeffrey, the Gold Coast Suns defender. I think he's a really good shout. If we look at the context as well, Gold Coast had their pants pulled down last week over in Adelaide, and Damien Hardwick, we know, is an amazing coach. He's done amazing things at the Suns. He'll hate that, and he would have got the boys fired up this week, in preparation for potentially their first finals campaign. We know Rowell and Anderson will be leading from the front. I think the rest of the Gold Coast boys will too. And I just think that Joel Jeffrey, particularly playing as a defender against the Bombers, he's going to star, I think. So, even in particular, like if he gets his marking game going, he scores really, really well. So he's got an average of 91 GDS points for the season. Last time we played the Bombers in round 17, he scored, and I don't have the stats for that from GDS, unfortunately, but in terms of AFL fantasy, it was 132 points. So that's more in GDS because they get the extra points with the kicking game. I reckon because the Bombers give up so many marks to opposition defenders, if he can get that marking game going, you can lock it in for 100 plus easy. And in that, D6, D7 position, I think that's going to be a difference maker, I think, between teams.
Unreal. Thanks for that insight. And what about you, Haz? Have you got a lock or a pod of the week, mate?
Yeah, so I think Pitty and I are kind of gone on the opposite ends of the field. So Pitty's gone for that kind of the pod in that D6, D7, and I think I'm going for about an F6, F7 spot at the moment in the forward line. And like Pitty said, we're testing the depth of our squads with pretty much everyone playing all the same players tonight. So I've gone for a player who's only averaged 62 points in GDS this year, and that's probably not a lot in comparison to a lot of other forwards across the competition. But Essendon have given up an average of 108 GDS points over two key forwards in the last 3 weeks. In particular, the dominant key forwards from each team in the last 3 weeks being Harry Mackay, Cooper Sharman, and Jeremy Cameron. They've gone 111, 113, and 123, respectively, at an average of 115.7. And with the Suns looking to lock in that last final spot in their first finals in history, I think, and with Essendon's injury crisis, they're only 1 day away from their trip to Bali. Ben King could have a huge night. So my pod of the week is Ben King from the Gold Coast Suns.
Yeah, good shout.
Unreal. Well,
and
what
just
have you
quickly, Dill, as well.
Going?
Just can I say as well, just those people in the chat there too. Thanks for everyone with those really positive comments. That's been so good. I've loved that about GDS, just the community, just welcoming everyone in. So thank you so much.
Unreal. And anyone that is keen to play that, what have you got? 2.5 minutes to get your team sorted before that game locks out on GDS. So make sure you use those two players in Joel Jeffrey, Ben King. And then it looks like Mel's also throwing out one as well in Redmond. I have no idea who any of those players are, but I hope that they're all.
He's in for a big night.
There
Absolutely.
you go.
I went to play him
Yeah,
last week.
boys have got him. Lovely.
Yeah, absolutely. Great shout.
All right, boys, thank you very much. I'm sure we'll see plenty more of you, particularly with the AFL finals coming up. We'll get some content happening there and then into the cricket season as we get closer to Big Bash. Thanks, boys. Looking forward to working with you over the next year or so.
Perfect. Thanks, lads. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for having us, boys. Thank you.
Thanks, boys.
Good night.
Catch up.
Well, there you go. That's the first big announcement. Obviously, we have a couple of new players on board in our squad. We also have that new sport. The second big announcement is that, as we said, we have reached that 100 subs. It only took Melissa, I think, sending everyone DMs to make sure they jump on board. So Melissa doing our advertising for us. And as a result, we are going to do another massive giveaway. So those people who were involved in the 50th episode giveaway, you'll know we are happy to give as much away as possible to our supporters. We really appreciate all of that support. So this one, we're going to give a whole bunch of prizes away, including one of these brand new Fantasy Bros hats for the top prize. All you need to do is make sure that you are following us, subscribing to us at our YouTube channel at Fantasy Bros AU, and then send a DM across any of our socials, or even hit us up over on Gmail, fantasybrosau@gmail.com, so that you can access that opportunity to win those awesome prizes. Just screenshot that you are following, that you're subscribing, and get involved. And we'll start announcing some prizes over the next week, and we'll draw that on the final show of the regular season, which is next week. Who can believe that? Before heading into the finals. Callum has pointed out with the Fantasy Bros merch is lit, and yes, I agree. We're starting to delve into some merch as well. That's probably our last little announcement. That's keep an eye out. We will be looking to get some merch out and as prizes, as well as potentially an option to purchase. So keep an eye out for that as well. We've got plenty of things happening in the background at Fantasy Bros because we love this so much and we enjoy what we do, helping each and every one of you every single week. And with that, mate, should we get into it?
Let's do it, mate. That's what we're here for. We love talking our footy. And we want to atone for last week where we didn't find ourselves in those top 10. So let's get into it, mate, with the hooker position. And I'll start. And thank goodness we've got Blake Brayley back in our teams. Look, every time I think I've tried to play Harry Grant, he's gone really poorly. He hasn't reached those heights that I've expected. Yeah. Look, we knew it was going to be a close game between the Dogs last week, but Harry decided to have a number of penalties, missed tackles, and a sin bin for an abysmal total points tally. I did joke last week saying there was every chance that Blake Brayley could just stay in my team during the bye week, and I wouldn't have been that much worse off if I had just left him there. But look, glad that we've got Blake Brayley back in. I think he'll be a pretty easy plug and play. I know the Knights aren't giving up a lot to hookers, but that's probably a little bit misleading. Look, the Sharks are going to run all over them. Brayley's going to continue his running and creative game like we've seen, and there's every chance he finds some attacking stats close to the line there, or he's always sort of sniffing around the ruck. I think the Sharkies will score plenty of points. We'll have plenty of them in our teams this week, and I think you got to be pretty risky to look past Blake Brayley this week.
Yeah, I tend to agree. Like you said, though, that the Knights have been pretty good at restricting hookers, averaging 24 to all hookers in the last 5 games of the NRL season, as well as 26 to just the starting hookers. So that's a little bit concerning. But, I mean, end of the day, it's Blake Brayley, like you said. I don't think it really matters. I'm happy to lock him in. We've seen before his bye, he's averaging 56 points. And, look, they were against a pretty poor defences as well, and in kind of similar situation to the Knights, and similar to a number of other top 8 teams. They're really just looking ahead to Mad Monday and what that's going to look like. So I don't think they're going to put up much of a fight in this game. If you are a little bit concerned that the Knights have been restricting Brayley, there might be a potential pod option, and we both sort of talked about him as well, in Api Coruscant. He's coming off that 50-point effort against the Cowboys down at Leichhardt. So that, it's not a huge score, but the upside was that he's got the kicking duties now with Dewey out with those multiple fractures. So there's potential upside there. The Raiders have also been given up 53 points to starting hookers over the past month. So there's probably a little bit of an opportunity to exploit some of that defense through the middle, maybe. I know your boys have been pretty good lately, but yeah, they're obviously giving up some points to hookers. So if you want to go a little bit different, you want to get that pod play, maybe across one of those competitions that you're not in the prize card hunt for, and just look for some prize money at the end of the round, then maybe Api Coruscant might be an option for you.
Michael Cosby saying that he's got Harry Grant in the never in my team again basket. I'm almost there with you, mate. And if Mel had known that you played him last week, she would not have played him.
Cosby curse.
Pretty ominous signs
Cosby
there.
curse.
Look, I think rather than just maybe potting against Blake Brayley, I think another way to pot up is getting 2 hookers in your team. So putting one of them on the bench, like the Api Coruscant that Dill mentioned. And don't look past Jake Simpkin either, getting nice roll there at Manly. Manly have maybe found some form finally. Yes, they put on 58 points. Whether or not that's going to continue, who knows? But he's definitely making plenty of tackles, and he's always a chance there around the try line. So a few decent hooking options this week. And if you want to get funky, look for 1 or even 2 on your bench. But look, I can't see many people wanting to go too far past Blake Brayley.
There's probably an opportunity there just before we move on. There's probably an opportunity if majority of coaches are playing Blake Brayley, there might be an opportunity for a salary pod there. Maybe load up in a little bit of salary if you're playing that classic or contender, and nice. Maybe just lock in those extra points, knowing that majority of players or majority of coaches are going to play him.
Will 100% of coaches be playing the top 2 names on our list there in Payne Haas, provided he is named on that team sheet? And Terrell,
I think they will. I don't know anyone that in their right mind to be going against these 2 blokes. They are just really headlining the forward position. And for me, they're just set and forgets every week. And we don't need to analyse any further. Just go back and have a look at Payne Haas's 40-metre, 50-metre. I bet if he talks about it, he's run the length of the field, beaten 4 blokes and sidestepped everyone. His try effort there last week, and Terrell May just continues to be so dominant. I think he only had about 5 minutes on the sideline last week, and then came back on the field not long after. So I think it's silly not to play them. And again, there's an opportunity to load up in some salary.
Yeah, I like that, mate. I'm definitely playing those 2, but I'm only going to play the 3rd middle and none on the bench this week. I don't have enough faith in enough of the middles. We said last week, it's been a long, grueling season. A lot of them are sort of down on minutes or down on output, maybe making a few errors. There's been a couple boys putting their hands up, but it hasn't been as consistent. I like the Tino Fa'asuamaleaui shout again. He had a nice game last weekend, scoring a try. But look, he's going to be that bloke that rips in. He's had a number of weeks off through injury, so if anything, he should be feeling a little bit fresher than others now that he's gotten a few more games under his belt post-injury. But look, he's playing against that same Dolphins team that Payne Haas, strolled over from about 30 or 40 out and just was looking like he was going for an arvo jog. Tino's a really similar attacking threat inside that 20-metre line as well. So, look, there's a bit of pride on the line here for the Titans. They want to get one over their Queensland counterparts there in the Dolphins. So there's plenty of upside, and you got 65 minutes on the weekend. There aren't many players outside of Payne Haas and Terrell May with that sort of attacking upside. That's also getting 65 minutes. So if you can just sort of cut down on the errors and the missed tackles, I think there's plenty of points in Tino this weekend.
Yeah, and you touch on his missed tackles, and we talked about it last week as well. And his missed tackle versus tackle break ratios, not great. But the positive sign out of that game last week from Tino up against the Warriors is he made 48 tackles and he only missed 2, and he broke 4 tackles himself. So, if we can continue to see that improvement across his tackle break, missed tackle ratio, then I think his output's going to be a lot more consistent. And even if you take that try away from his 78 points, it's still a really good score. For a player who is starting to find some form and starting to, get back into that decent minute realm that we like from our big forwards. So, I'm happy to go with the Tino shout as well. And for me, I'm playing a 4th middle, and then looking at whether I play that extra hooker or maybe an edge as well. And I'm going to stick with White again. I know he sort of had, a bit of a down game last week, but it wasn't too bad. And he's really found that home at lock for the Roosters. I really like that spot for him. There's obviously a bit in the news around the Roosters, and in particular, Victor Radley's name's been thrown out there, and linked to Brandon Smith and his escapades. So who knows what's going to happen sort of around there. And maybe the Roosters are sort of looking long-term and looking at White taking over that role long-term in the future. So I really like the opportunity that he's getting. And since moving to that spot in round 23, he's averaged 54 minutes on the field. And as a result, he's averaged 55 GDS points. So he hasn't really lost anything from that spot where he moved from the front row into the lock. It is a little bit deceiving, though, if we wanted to look at purely stats. He did have an 80-point game, which included 2 tries in that. But we still look at his base and power, and he's averaging 139 metres and 21 tackles per game. Plus, in the last 3 games, he's broken 14 tackles across those 3 games. So I think he's got more of that opportunity in that lock role. The other thing to consider as well, the Storm's rested a few players, and the Roosters are really playing to remain in that top 8. They're sort of battling for that spot between the Dolphins, Manly as well. There's a couple of other teams there really looking to get a one over them. So I think the Roosters will really want a big game after, I'm going to say, the horrible loss to the Eels. And I guess we can take a small amount of blame for that. And I'm sure we'll touch on that a little bit more later. But hopefully all of those things in terms of the enormity of the game bodes well for White and then a couple of other Roosters that we're looking to play as well.
Yeah, gee, I hope he doesn't crash over for 2. Fortunately, I played him that week that he did do that. I'd be pretty upset if he does do that and he's not in my side, but definitely a good play for this round. I just want to touch on Mel's question really quickly there. Melissa's asked, who's got the better matchup for scoring? Is it Tapine or Tino? Tino's scoring output is about 40 points against the Dolphins opposition, but they've been, pretty poor in the last few weeks. Particularly brittle through the middle and down those edges there. I think the big issue for Tapine is just the minutes are all over the place, particularly if the Raiders are winning the match easily. He's been put on ice a little bit longer than usual. So, yeah, look, I think Tino's got that higher upside. Tapine needs a try to score and 60 minutes to score that sort of big 60 or 70 point game. He's got plenty of 30s and 40s this season. It's just sort of really hard to pick when he's going to have that big game. But I think Tino's going to provide a bit more consistency.
Yeah, and just to add to that before we get to Steve Kanga's comment, Tapine, up against the Tigers, they allow 38 at the moment over the last sort of four or 5 games to all middle forwards. Whereas, like we said, the 40 points there in the Dolphins, who have been pretty leaky across the park, really, over the last few weeks, and we'll talk about that a little bit more. So, yeah, I'm pretty happy to go with Tino over Tapine if that was the options. And as you can see there, Sif Kanga is got a comment in, so Wong, but so White. And yep, that's obviously the the combination there. Wong starting on the bench, White in the middle there. Lovely. Let's have a look at the edges. And mate, there's a couple of Raiders there. Are you just getting a little bit too happy with yourself being at the top of the table and now keen to run out a couple of Raiders?
Mate, how good were they Friday night? They've probably secured try of the season ×2. I know that was hotly contested in a group chat you and I are part of, but no, what a game that was. And look, they're not playing the 4-time premiership winners Penrith Panthers. They're playing the Tigers, who just allowed 38 points against the Cowboys out of Queensland. So that's a pretty big feat for the Cowboys to put on those sorts of points away from home. And they did it pretty easily as well. The Tigers probably still going to score some points in this game, but this is a game where I'm going to capitalise on a couple of those Raiders forwards in Hudson Young and Zach Hosking, who, look, I love the Hosking start outside Jamal Fogarty's right side shoulder against some pretty brittle defence there in the Tigers. I think he's every chance of scoring a try or getting amongst some attack. I do like that there's no Matty Nicholson on the bench. He was touted to sort of return this week, and that would put a few question marks over his minutes. But look, even with Sasangi in the team there, you're still getting at least 70 minutes. And if there's any sort of minor injury to the pack or the backs, Sasangi's filling that role and Hosking's going the full 80. He just came off 51 tackles against the Panthers. He only missed 2. He also broke 2 tackles and ran for those typical sort of 115 metres. He's got, plenty of upside there, attacking the line with the short ball from Fogarty. He's scored a few tries like that already this season. And look, it just wouldn't surprise if he gets another. So I think he might be sort of underplayed this week. But I think Hudson Young will be pretty popular. You got to pick the bloke that's just scoring tries for fun. He hasn't been amazing over the past sort of 4 to 6 weeks, but look, the Raiders are making that run to the finals now, and they'll want him to find some form and ripping and tearing like he was at the start of the season. But they're still getting it done, even without him sort of having those big games. But he's been quiet for too long. I think a couple of tries is just around the corner for him.
I actually like that Hosking shout. I don't know if I will go with it. I'm just always nervous about playing both sides of the field on the edge there. But yeah, obviously, Hosking has sort of come into form over the last couple of weeks, and Young sort of dropped off that form a little bit. But I expect that there's a positive match up there against the Tigers, and the Tigers we saw on the weekend were pretty happy to just give up 3 tries in about 8 minutes against the Cowboys there with some pretty horrible defence, particularly on the edges. So yeah, I'm more than happy to play Young, and maybe Hosking might find his way in a couple of teams that I'm not fully invested in, and happy just to try and run out a couple of pods. Before we move on and talk about another bloke from the edge position, JT's thrown up a question. Thoughts on Udo Kamanu this week, possible bigger minute role with the restings? And I actually really love that play. Obviously, we don't know a great deal of what that role is going to look like. McDonald's in the front row with him there, and then there's a couple of big boys on the bench, one of them being Asafa Salomona. But yeah, Udo Ekamanu, over the last 5 rounds, he's averaged 61 GDS points and really just gone under the radar for a lot of players, including me as well. I haven't really looked at him probably since the last 2 months of footy. I haven't really looked at his name at all. So I think he's definitely a potential pod option. And I feel like JT might have spilled the beans on potentially who is playing over in Contender. In Challenger, and sort of maybe throwing a spanner in the works for your team, Stu.
Yeah, look, 2 tries in those games where he's played over 50 minutes, and he's breaking plenty of tackles in some of those easier fixtures as well. I think he's a good play, but I don't know if it's going to guarantee extra minutes. He's sort of capped at that 50-minute mark. He's only played over 50 minutes 3 times this season, and they've only been really low 50s, a 52 or 52 or 54. So I don't know if Bellamy really wants him out there for that long. He can sort of rip in for the 50 minutes that he's on the field. But yeah, look, if he is getting 60 or 65, it probably is a no-brainer. I just don't think Bellamy's season is that big, and he doesn't need to be that big-minute player either. His impact is when he's going hard for those 50 minutes and not sort of pacing himself for 60 or 65, which he probably could do in a team like this, but I don't think that's his role. I don't think Bellamy will need him to do that.
Yeah, good call. Look, Mel's put through another question as well, and Mel and I had a conversation about this yesterday. With the mad disrespect of the Panthers, should we be looking at the Dogs to score well for GDS? And yeah, that's sort of a theme of our show tonight, is that we're loading up on players against some of the bottom 8 teams, but we're also loading up on players against the baby Panthers. I don't know, the Cubs, is that what they're called? I'm not sure what you want to call them, the New South Wales Cup team.
Someone let us know.
Whatever we're going to call them, that obviously they've thrown out a bit of disrespect. I think more probably disrespectful to the Dogs fans more so than anything. I would think I'd be pretty upset as a Doggies fan to turn up to a game, potentially pay full price and watch an under-19 New South Wales Cup combination side run out against the Doggies, but. That's
I think it's disrespectful to Brad Schneider. He's the only player out of the 17 last week that has had to regroup and get up for this match. Everyone else is putting their feet up and having a nice quiet week and resting up for next week. But no, Brad Schneider's drawn the short straw there, it seems. I want to know what happens with all of the flow-on effect from this happening. Like, the New South Wales Cup team is playing here in first grade. Jersey Flegg team will play New South Wales Cup. Who then fills the role of the Jersey Flegg team? Is it the under 12s or something? I don't know. There's going to be some team that's missing a lot of good players, and we're probably going to see a big 100-point scoreboard somewhere as a flow-on effect of all of these restings.
I love it. So as a result, I think it whether they were playing the full strength Penrith side or whether they were playing this Cubs side, I think we'd still be loading up on Jacob Preston. And I think now more than anything, potentially there's opportunity for some salary there on someone like Jacob Preston, who just continues to impress and continues to do everything we need him to do. And as a result, he's sort of topping all the averages in GDS. And look, the benefit as well, like I said, whether it was a decent Panthers outfit or not, they're still allowing 50 points to right side edges over the last 4 matches. So I think there's every opportunity that Preston has a big game and potentially gets over for a try or two as well.
Yeah, he nailed that. Probably a play regardless of the Panthers resting, but that just confirms that he's likely to be a great start and just some added increase for that attacking potential playing against a weakened team. I also think Angus Crichton has a nice matchup against a slightly weakened team in the Storm. They're not resting all of their players, but that's a big reason why you liked Naf White earlier in the middles section. But Angus Crichton has a similar matchup there. He won't be opposing Eli Katoa there on the Storm's right edge. Jerome Hughes isn't there either, obviously. So there's a sort of new look edge there for the Storm. I think who's defending out on that edge there? Is it Joe Chan?
It would be Joe Chan. I know Blaw's been playing quite a bit and he's been on the left. So I'd assume Joe Chan would be there, but maybe they swap roles. I'm not quite sure.
Yeah, so still no Eli Katoa, obviously. So and we've seen, Joe Chan sort of struggle a little bit with his lateral movement. Crichton's sort of going to see that and sort of pick on him in the half next to him as well. So I'm not expecting a massive game for Crichton. I just see him as someone, again, with a little bit of upside. He'll be on the park for 80 minutes, minus injury. But the only sort of reservation might be there's no Sammy Walker alongside him. We have seen his numbers increase slightly with Walker there. Look, maybe they're still going to capitalise on that weakened Melbourne Storm outfit. And I think he'll be another guy that might be slightly underplayed as well with a little bit of attacking upside. I just hope he can find the try line and sort of move a high 40s, low 50s into a mid 60s sort of score.
Yeah, and I guess that's the thing, isn't it? He's averaging 50 GDS points over the past 5 games in Angus Crichton. So if he gets somewhere around that again, I'd be pretty happy. But I think he does have that opportunity to go a bit higher. The other interesting thing with Katoa when Katoa's been in the side defending on that right side, the Storm are allowing 57 GDS points to the left edge. So there must be some attacking upside that they're getting through that left side, attacking against Katoa. And yeah, with him out and Joe Chan potentially starting there, I think there's plenty of opportunity for Crichton to run over the top of him or break a few tackles. Chan, he's had 1 game starting on the edge this season. In that game, he missed 3 tackles. In 2024, he had 3 appearances on the edge and he missed 8 tackles during that time. So I think there's an opportunity. If Gussie is up against Joe Chan, I think there's plenty of tackle breaks on offer. So if we can get him, Gus in his usual base and power, plus maybe a try or a try assist, I think we'll be pretty happy with the end result.
Right, mate, I'm happy to move on if you are. That's all of our engine points that we want to, sort of lock in and be fairly safe with. But I think there's plenty of points to be made in the backs this week with so many restings and so many ideal matchups. And I guess it starts with the halves, doesn't it? There's obviously one big name there missing, and that's no Nathan Cleary. So if anything, I actually think that might make our decisions for the halves a little bit easier. I think there are sort of 3 standouts and then 3 sort of second-tier players that might have been a bit more interesting if we did have a Cleary selection. But for me, it's those first 3 names, Jamal Fogarty, Nico Hines, and Jaden Campbell. I just see them as a little bit of head and shoulders there above the next three, and with some pretty advantageous matchup as well. Are you leaning the same way, or is there anyone else you're looking at?
I'm exactly the same as you. Those three, I think, are my 1, 2, and 3. I'd probably go Jaden Campbell first, Nicho Hynes second, and then Jamal Fogarty probably my third. Of the rest, I'm pretty nervous about both Munster and Katoa. Both of the matchup data against the Roosters and Titans, respectively, just doesn't look too great. The Roosters have allowed 26 to left halves over the last 5 rounds, and then the Titans 24 to left halves over the last 5 rounds. So it's obviously the more dominant right side. The left side defense that's less dominant. The right side defense of those two teams have been a lot more dominant. So I think, I'll be just playing those 3 that we talked about. Sif Kanga, once again, back in the comments, and he's running with his Wishart again. I love his conviction. I love his consistency. Good on you, Sif. Keep it up, mate. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise. I love it. Wishart there. Is there any key things you want to look at in terms of the halves, in terms of maybe potential salary? Where might you be looking at playing some salary then? If we're, majority of coaches are rolling out those 3 boys, maybe you want to look at putting some salary on 1 or 2 of them.
Yeah, mate, absolutely. 4 p.m. Sunday afternoon at Suncorp. Weather looks good. The Titans are playing against the Dolphins, who have allowed in the past month scores of 58 points, 38 points, and 64 points. And that's in terms of NRL. So when they're allowing that many points on the NRL field, that's going to convert into GameDay squad fantasy points as well. And if the Titans are scoring points, Jaden Campbell is certainly amongst them. Not only would he be scoring them, running the full field, taking intercepts, setting them up with his hands or his foot, he's also going up in threes when he's kicking them nice and sweetly off the tee. I think there's plenty of points in this game. It could, for all we know, be 40 all or somewhere around there. But look, that doesn't really matter when you've got the key playmaker in that team scoring plenty of points. So yeah, like you alluded to, Jaden Campbell is probably your number 1 half. I think I'd be looking at throwing some extra salary on him. We know he can get the job done just through his tackles, his run meters, his tackle breaks, and his kicking meters off the boot. His base is actually really nice for a sort of smaller half there, someone who's still sort of growing into his body and still got a lot of improvement in first grade to make. But he's pretty reliable with that floor. It's just such an enticing matchup there with the Dolphins, Sunday Arvo and Brizzy. Gee, that's going to be a points fest, I
hope so too. And just on the Dolphins, like you said, 178 NRL points against them over the past month. And as a result, right halves in particular have really feasted on them. 59.3 average across the last 5 rounds. And then just looking more specifically at the last 3 rounds, the Dolphins allowed an average of 72 GDS points to right side halves. So if JC just plays his normal game and then looks for some opportunity in terms of some attacking stats, I think 70 plus is going to be quite easy for him to rack up if that game script goes as we think it will. Nicho Hynes, obviously my second one. I think he's a pretty easy play this week, facing the Knights, who they're pretty much done with their season. We've already talked about they gave up plenty of points the last couple of weeks as well. And even before the bye, Hynes put up a really nice 80 GDS points against the Titans, which gave his 4-round average of 60. And we've really seen Hynes really step his game up, probably since about round 16 or so. He's had a much more consistent game, and as a result, he's sort of averaging that 53 for base that we really want to see from him. And then we add to that the fact that the Knights are giving up an average of 57 to right side halves. I think it's a really simple play for Hynes. The last one in Fogarty is an interesting one as well, because he's kind of had a down couple of weeks. We talked about potentially that correlation between Ethan Strange stepping up and having a few more points in him and Fogarty's scores going down a little bit. But I still like him as a big play here up against the Tigers. If you do look at his scores, his 3-round rolling average, though, has taken a massive dip with scores of 24 and 46. But he did follow that up with that 65 against the Panthers. So hopefully he's back on track. And hopefully that Ethan Strange doesn't take too many points off him.
Ethan Strange can score as many points as he wants, mate. I'm more than happy with that. But no, it's good to see Fogarty get amongst the point scorers in terms of GS fantasy against a really tough opponent in the Panthers. So he hasn't, fallen off the cliff like some people were questioning. If anything, it just sort of motivated him to pick his game up a little bit with that tougher fixture there against the Panthers. So yeah, I still see him as a really fine play. He racks up points pretty consistently as well. And if the Cowboys are scoring 38 points outside of Queensland, I only imagine what the Raiders can put on. So, yeah, look, not many other Raiders backs in the team this week. I've obviously got those few forwards. Find plenty of other, really nice backs matchups. So I've got to have a piece of the Raiders somewhere, and it's pretty easy to plug a Jamal Fogarty in there.
Alrighty, let's jump across to centres, and we have a massive return. The name at the top of the list there, KL Iro, is finally back after, what's it been, about 10, 12 weeks, something like that. Round 14, we saw him off the field with that pec injury, and he's finally back. And look, with that, he comes straight back into my team. I'm really pumped to have him in. The Sharks are really aiming for that top 4 spot, I think, and they've probably got a pretty good opportunity. The Warriors are obviously all over the place at the moment. The Broncos are starting to find some form, but the Sharks have got every opportunity to get in there. And for that, I don't see why they would rush KL back and play him in this big match and potentially cost them, something later down the line. So I think for me, it means that he's fully fit and they're happy to run him out and we get his usual game. And really his output this season has been unreal, scoring a try, at least one try in every game this season, which I don't know if I've ever seen that before. I think that's an unreal record that he has. And even without the games, without the tries, we filter out the 2 games where he sustained an injury. His base and power in a full 80 minutes is still 50 GDS points. So even without those tries, we're still banking on up to 50 GDS points plus just from base and power. And in the center spot, I think that's just absolute gold, considering the volatility that we've had throughout the season.
Yes, look, still mathematically a chance for that top 4. They are a win behind the Warriors. So if the Warriors do get a win, they'll probably secure that top 4 ahead of them. But there's still a chance there, just on equal points with the Broncos. So they'll obviously be looking to score plenty of points to improve that for and against, because they're below the Bronx in that regard as well. And this is a match to do so. So, yeah, look, they certainly wouldn't be rushing Kaeliro out there. The replacements for the Sharkies backlines have been really good this season already. And the injury risk for a pec injury of that nature is reportedly pretty low. So but there probably shouldn't be too many concerns about any re-injury, and he must be good to go. So, yeah, look, hopefully his fitness is okay and he can still play out the full 80. They could, have a planned spell after sort of 60, particularly if the scoreline is quite favourable for the Sharkies. So that might be something to consider. Look, as soon as I heard him being named for the week, I thought, yep, finally I can put that diamond back into my champion team. But there's so many good options there at the centres, isn't there? You've obviously spoken at length why Iro is a great shout. But look, there's an argument that Stephen Crichton and AJ Brimson could be better plays. Crichton mostly because of the matchup there with the Panthers. With no disrespect to them, the stars aren't there. So look, these boys have plenty to prove. They won't go out there and not play as best as they can. But there's a bit of difference between fringe first graders and elite footballers, like the Stephen Crichtons of the world. So I can see him going really well on that right edge there, kicking plenty of goals. But AJ Brimson is the statistical matchup god for this week, isn't he? Do you want to run our listeners through what Brimson's stats
and
are
before we
like?
do, I was really looking at Brimson and going, is this the one week that I don't talk about a player because I want to keep him to myself? And I know you talked about that last week, but it wouldn't be a show and we wouldn't be where we are if we did that. Look, Brimson playing at fullback for the Titans up against the Dolphins this week. The Dolphins have allowed 85 GDS points on average to fullbacks over the last month. If we filter that to just the last 3 rounds, that average increases to 99.8. to fullbacks. So just based on those stats, I don't want to look at anything else. I'm putting Brimson straight into my side and hoping, like you said, it's a 40-all match and Brimson has his hands all over that ball.
And the beauty is we can roll him out in our centre position, and he's obviously rolling out there in the number 1 jersey. Is the Keanu Kinney naming on the bench for the 3rd week in a row? Could that derail any plans? They don't play until the final match of the round. So if there's a late shift with a Brimson to a 6 or even the centres with Kinney starting, could that pose some potential concerns?
Yeah, it's a big concern. And I guess we just have to have faith that Desi's already lost his job, so he won't do anything silly to make it worse. But no, Kinney's been on the bench the last, like you said, couple of weeks, and the way that they've used him is just so confusing. He's one of the most electric players that they've got in their side. and he's not getting as much game time as what we would expect. And I think it's just because they, to be honest, Desi probably just doesn't know how to use them correctly with Foran still being there. So yeah, I could see a world where Brimson might move into the halves, and that could be a little bit concerning. But like I said, they're still giving up plenty of points across the park in terms of the Dolphins. So if he does move into the halves, it might be beneficial to have Brimson and Jaden Campbell playing together there, and there might be plenty of opportunity where Campbell sort of organises the team and just throws the ball to Brimson and say run hard and break some tackles for us, and I'll do the rest of the work. So
yeah, we've seen Kenny get the 20 minutes off the bench. Foran's been exiting the field. Brimson's been moving to that left half position. It's probably just to give Kenny, some game time, get his confidence back, rolling into the off season, and then a nice strong preseason to head into round 1 next year. So maybe just keeping the body and the legs rolling over. But 60 minutes of Brimson at fullback hopefully is the minimum, and he could have a big score by then. And even if he doesn't get amongst the points in the halves, fingers crossed, he's already scored plenty. And yeah, that selection in the centres has paid off.
Yeah, as you said, Crichton's definitely that other option. And I think if people are concerned about that Brimson, Kinney, Foran rotation, then maybe Critter's the best option to go with. Just let's hope he doesn't try and rip someone else's head off and potentially get 10 in the bin this time. We've seen what Critter can do. That was an absolute joke. But anyway, let's move on.
Yeah.
Alrighty, our favourite position or our least favourite position in the wing, where there is few and few options each and every week, and we've got to really dig deep to find some good stats for us to be able to look at and go with. And I guess the first player that most people or pretty much every coach is going to play is that Karaz for the doggies there. We've already spoken about that, the Panthers Cubs, and the likelihood of a complete rollover from the side against the doggies. And I think it's just silly not to play Karaz in whatever position he plays, whether he starts on the right or the left, or there's a swap to fullback or whatever it's going to be. I think Karaz is just going to be one of those players that go out there and does his usual job, and then finds that base and power, and with maybe a try or two on top.
Yeah, and I think a good way to sort of hedge there against Stephen Crichton as well, for those running Iro, Brimson, and then the 3 fullbacks on the bench. If Kiraz is going to get amongst the points, Crichton's probably going to have a hand in some of those try involvements as well. So he was sort of touch and go as a start if Panthers were fully fit. But similar to some of the picks that we've mentioned earlier, because their team is so depleted, I think he's a pretty easy play. And it looks like he will line up there on the right. Montoya is back, and he's that left side dominant winger. So that combination of Stephen Crichton and Kiraz on the right is probably going to feast. And look, if you play both of them, I think you'll come off pretty nicely as well. I just can't find a spot for Crichton there in my team. I think he might find a way into a starter or a classic side, but I've got to have Kiraz in all 4. I think even a bit of a salary pod, he could go massive. He could score a hat trick and get plenty of running meters with those kick returns as well.
Just before we move on, look, Harry's joined us back again. Look, hard at work. He's just had a bit of a chat about AFL, joined the Fantasy Bros, and he's back in here to give his insight into who he's playing on the wing. Good on you, Harry. Good on you, mate. Keep up that great work, Haz. Look, Karaz is a lock for me, and then it's my next spot where I'm really confused about at the moment. And to be honest, I think it's the first time I haven't actually made a decision on a player yet. For the purpose of the pod and the purpose of looking at teams, I've got one in mind, and I'll talk about them a little bit more. But the combination of either Karaz with Lomax or with Sione Katoa is probably where I'm looking. Lomax's last 5 matches, though, he's seen 2 scores above 60 and then 3 scores below or between 15, 14 and 25, which is pretty concerning. It's important to point out as well that those 2 games above 60, he scored 2 tries in each of those games. So there's 20 points that we can take off that 60 straight away. And it's not really great reading. The key for me, though, the Warriors have allowed an average of 55 to right wingers over the last 5 weeks. And we've seen the Warriors game is always in doubt. We never know what they're going to throw up and what it's going to look like. So there's probably some opportunity there for Lomax. But yeah, just that reading over the last 5 weeks is a bit concerning. And, he's got the kicking duties as well. But if they're not scoring tries, then he's not getting those threes. And I think it just shows that he needs a try probably as well to be sort of in that 40, 50, 60 realm. And I don't know. Banking on tries against the Warriors is a tough call. They could score 50 against the Warriors, or they could score nothing. So I'm not quite sure about Lomax yet, which probably means it's kind of leaving me with one of the Sharks wingers, and I'm looking at going Sione Katoa for two reasons. He could be a really great option down that right side. The Knights give up 53 GDS points over the last 5 weeks to right wingers. We look at it to the left, they're only giving up 25 to the left side. So there could be the play to go down the right. And Katoa's had some decent scores over the last few weeks in terms of a nice 40.5. He had a couple of down games with a 25 and at 29. And then he had that big 89 last week. So look, he's the epitome of a boom or bust opportunity, I think, and a boom or bust option. And let's just hope with his matchup against the Knights, who are looking to go, get out to Mad Monday, whatever that might be for them. Hopefully Katoa and the Sharks just go bananas in that game.
And probably off to Bali as well for the Knights. Yeah, look, I'm with you, and has mentioned Kiraz and Sione Katoa. Look, that right edge attack for the Bronx last week against that Knights team was pretty damaging. Tony Staggs scored within 2 minutes. D. Mariner had a double by full time, and Staggs had plenty of tackle breaks, and so did Mariner there on that right edge. So we've said a few times that we expect the Sharkies to put on a big score, and they're going to score points down the left and the right. So we've got Iro as our centre on the left. If they score plenty down the right, then it's a safe way to plug in Sione Katoa there as well. So we're hopefully getting points regardless of where they score on the field. And if Nico wants to throw that final ball for all of them and then kick the goal, then happy days. But yeah, I like that. Katoa's finally shown, after injury, hasn't played many games this season, hasn't scored too many tries. But that last match where he ran for a bucket load of meters and scored 2 tries just showed, he's probably returning to his former self, and he gets a nice little easy Knights team to beat up on this round. So yeah, I'm going to play him with a bit of confidence this week.
And look, anyone sitting there going, how do I toss up between Katoa and Murtalo, and who might I play? Their stats are fairly similar as well when they're playing together. They've both scored 5 tries when they're on the same team. Look, Ronnie makes a few more tackles. He's averaging 7, whereas Katoa's averaging 4. They both make similar meters, just over 150. But the thing for me is that Muatalo's only breaking 4 tackles, whereas Katoa's breaking an average of 6 tackles per game. So that's an extra couple of points there that might be really crucial at the end of the game and at the end of your round. So I think for me, I'll be going Katoa. And like you said, hedging your bets with that left side in KL Iro.
Beauty. And the fullbacks.
I don't know. Where do we start? We've got so many great options. Obviously, firstly, we've got to apologise to probably Drinky and all of the Cowboys. We slagged them off last week and their inability to travel and score points. And Drinky goes out and scores a decent total. It didn't look all in the bag sort of late in that second half, but that last 15 minutes was just atrocious, and the Cowboys really executed well in that last sort of 15, 20 minutes, and a majority of players there came away with a decent score. So yeah, we'll apologise to Scotty Drinkwater. Obviously I was down at the game live. Leichhardt Sunday afternoon was unreal. There's so many Tigers fans on the hill there just giving Scotty an absolute spray every time he lined up a kick from that side, and I don't think he missed once, which was quite nice to see from Scotty being able to deal with that pressure. So he's definitely an option this week. He's not for me though. I'm looking at a combination of Turbo and Walsh, and then taking a risk and continuing with my fascination with Tedesco, and we just need something more from him, don't we? He hit his second lowest score of the season last week, and it really hurt, like I said, a number of coaches, including both of us, after we talked up that positive matchup for the Roosters against the Eels. I think, look, we uncovered a curse of guests on the show and then losing key matchups, and I think we've also uncovered another curse of talking up a team that is going to have a big game and loading up on that team, and then them getting beaten, and as a result really hurts our side. So look, I'm going to run Teddy back one more time, and the matchup stats aren't horrible against the Storm. They're allowing 50 GDS points to fullbacks in the last 5, with some standouts of Turbo hitting 60 and Dill Edwards notching up 80 points in that round 24 match. Teddy fell just short of 50 as well, going back to round 21 against the Storm. So he knows how to score well against the Storm. We've already talked about the big game aspect of this for the Roosters. It's pretty much a do or die, and we know what Teddy's like in big games. So I'm going to give him one more chance in my team.
Yeah, don't mind that, mate. Absolute big game player and plenty to play for. They're the Roosters. They'll be pretty disappointed with that performance against the Eels last week. They must have listened to this show and heard how confident we were, and probably went out there a little bit under-aroused and couldn't quite match the intensity that the Eels brought. Mate, each week where we sort of look at fullbacks, we sort of look at who's playing the Bunnies. They've got a bye this week. We look at who's playing against the Titans, the Finns, a couple of those teams. But then we also look at the Panthers. And it hasn't just been a 1 or 2 sort of week thing where fullbacks are going off against the Panthers. It's been almost every week all season long. And you might even have that total number in front of you there for our listeners. But look, the fact that the Panthers are completely under strength this week, in addition to that plus matchup that we've seen almost all season long, I'm really tempted for a massive pod here in Connor Tracy. And I don't know if that's, trying to outthink the room too much, but it just screams such a plus matchup for me, where fullbacks are already scoring well. He gets through plenty of run meters. He isn't as creative as some of those fullbacks that can put on big scores, and obviously isn't a goal kicker, which some of those elite fullbacks are. But to me, there's just going to be plenty of opportunities for try involvements, maybe a try or two himself, but the usual run meters, tackle breaks, and some offloads. Am I being silly? Do I need to look elsewhere, or is there a fair shout in that play in Connor Tracy?
I think we need to go back about 10 shows maybe where I threw up something similar, and I think you laughed at me. I think Mel and Sif had a laugh, and it ended up being beneficial. It was something similar where Connor Tracy was up against the Dolphins, and he scored about 50 or 55 points against them and was quite handy. But no, you're 100% correct. Even just the last 5 weeks of the Panthers, they're allowing 53.5 GDS points to fullbacks or players in that fullback position. So we've seen a number of players out of position from a GDS standpoint playing in that fullback role against the Panthers. But yeah, they're still allowing 53.5 GDS points. So I think Connor Tracy is a great shout. Obviously a depleted side, which we continue to harp on about, but the full strength Panthers side are allowing 53. Who knows what this baby Panthers side are going to allow? And along the similar vein, I've got another potential pod for you. And again, this is another bloke that we've all laughed at plenty of times when I've thrown his name out, but it's Will Kennedy.
Let me guess.
Sorry, mate. Yeah. It is Will.
As soon as you started, I knew that's where
Will
we were going.
Kennedy.
I'm going to switch off for the next 2 minutes. Let me know when you finish talking about Will Kennedy.
Okay, let me start it this way. The Knights have allowed 79.7 GDS points in the last 5 rounds to fullbacks. If we filter that
all right, I'm
for
listening.
just 3 rounds, that increases to 87 in the last 3 rounds to fullbacks. We obviously saw a big score from Reece Walsh last week, getting the job done against the Knights. And we've talked about plenty of times the vulnerability that the Knights have in terms of not keen to play any more footy. Pretty much they've shut up shop. So look, if you want to look somewhere else, you want to go with the pod, Kennedy or potentially Tracy. I'd be a little nervous to play both of them, but I think one of them potentially will have a big game. And look, I'm going to run out Kennedy in my challenger side, and I'll send a screenshot once the teams are locked, just to prove that that's the case. So maybe you do Tracy and I'll do Kennedy, and we'll see who wins at the end of the week.
Done. I like it. But just quickly, you're comparing Will Kennedy to the stats that Dylan Edwards, Scott Drinkwater, and Reece Walsh have put up.
Yep.
And hoping that he goes somewhere similar.
Yep.
Gee, I'm going to look very silly this time next week if Will Kennedy has a generational performance.
And just before we move on and talk about Turbo and Walsh, look, Mel's put in a comment there and said the real highlight of my weekend, or Dill's weekend, she said, was meeting the Hot Wiggle. And Mel, you've got it slightly wrong. The Wiggles met me. They sought out me in that pub to come and find me and get a photo with me. They saw me from afar, and I had my Fantasy Bros hat on, and they were keen to come over and have a chat. So I got an opportunity to have a chat with both Anthony and John. I'm not sure which one she means is the Hot Wiggle, but I'm pretty sure it was Anthony.
That was going to be my question.
No, good on you, Mel. Alrighty, give us a chat about Turbo and Walsh there, mate. I'm pretty sure you're leaning that way as well.
Yeah, mate. I'm just chasing last week's points, putting no thought into this whatsoever. We saw how good they both were last week. They got some pretty plus matchups again this week. We wanted to see a bit of confidence from Tommy, running the footy, taking on the line, breaking tackles. Yeah, they beat up on a pretty poor outfit last week, but it doesn't get too much harder. The Dragons, they got the Dragons, don't they? They've let up a pretty similar amount of points. The Dolphins have. The fullback position against the Dragons has been pretty fortuitous at times this season as well. So with a bit of confidence, under his belt with Cherry Evans, finding some form in his 350th and Manly still having a red hot crack to finish the season. I think we can get some more points from Tommy again this week. Reece Walsh is probably one of the first players picked. He's just been absolutely electric without Mam and Reynolds there, and Ben Hunt on the right-hand side and Walters on the left is just totally freeing up his game, and he looks like a completely different person for my challenger side. I wish that had happened from round one, because his prize card was getting me about a 26-point average for the first 2 months of the season.
Yeah, that's it. We were nervous at the start of the season, but he's really found some form. Look, I'm a little bit cognizant of there's one player on the bench for the Broncos that I'm a little bit nervous about, and that's the guy named in 22 in Adam Reynolds. I can't believe, one, that he's come back so quickly after the hammy injury, and two, do you reckon he comes into the side and has an impact on Reece's output?
Yeah, probably. If he's good to go, then you'd expect him to come straight into the side in that number 7 jersey. And we just haven't seen Reece Walsh put up big numbers consistently with Reynolds there in the side. Maybe Reynolds will have seen how Ben Hunt has been able to unlock him, and coming back from injury himself won't want to overdo things, and sort of just give Reece the ball and say, do your thing, which is exactly what's been happening over those last few weeks. I don't think they'll completely change that game plan. I think it'd be surprising to see Reynolds line up there anyway, so it could be a bit of a moot point. Is a little bit annoying there. Just probably something to watch out for if you think Reynolds is going to have a massive impact. It'd be tough to bet against Reece Walsh after the form we've seen 100%. Him in there.
And then the other one, just on Turbo, look, the Dragons have allowed a 3-round average of 51 to fullbacks. That includes a 63 from Jai Gray and a 57 from Tuapiki. So, look, obviously Turbo a step above both of those blokes that are in sort of the early part of their career. So I think, Manly, like a few other teams, are really pushing for that top 8 finish. And Turbo won a massive performance in the penultimate round, and hopefully they make that top 8. With a couple of big games in hand. So, I think Turbo's an easy play, as is Reece Walsh. And we're all just going to sit there and nervously watch Teddy and hope that his score ticks over quite nicely against that Storm game, which should be an absolute cracker.
Yeah, absolutely. Looking forward to that one. Just 2 things very quickly from me. I'm probably going to, in one of my teams, leave a spot open for Sunday, 4 p.m. I'll probably have Fuller or Hammer, Tabuai-Fidow as that bench back. And if Kinney somehow gets named in that number 1 jersey for the Titans, he'll be coming straight into that team. But I don't mind a Hammer or a Fuller shout on the other side of the field if whichever one of them does roll out at fullback. We saw Hammer named there last week and Fuller played there. They've named Fuller there this week. They probably will stick with that with Fuller there. I think he'd be a nice little handy pod there against the Titans, particularly when we're expecting that 50 all-point score. Yes, Melissa Trey Fuller looks to be starting, and Ganners has asked, is there any benefit in playing 3 centres? The short answer is yes, mate, but you're going to have to go back and listen to a couple of the blokes we've talked about, because we have flirted with the idea of a 3rd fullback, given some of the matchups that are really enticing, but we've got some really good fullbacks to play as well. So, I think there's going to be maybe some nice differences in the makeup of our backs bench, particularly through some of those really good centre and fullback options this round.
For sure. Lovely. All right, he's flicking over. Let's have a look at our teams. And there's not too many differences across our teams, really. We've kind of got a majority of the similar players there. The one big difference, I think, is you running out Connor Tracy at the moment and me playing that risky play in James Tedesco. And then I've also got Naf White and you've got Hosking. So I don't always like when we've got very similar teams. It means that we're probably not going to go well. And we've seen that in the past, but hopefully this is the week where we both benefit and have some success. But as we say, there's always going to be changes. And we mention each and every week, make sure you're on the Game Day Squad Discord, where I do my very best to post teams an hour before kickoff so that you can make any last-minute changes that you need to. And again, we also say that make sure you've got a pivot option up your sleeve. If you're playing Grimson at the end of the week and that's the final game of the round, you've got to make sure that you have a pivot option in case he does move to the centres or to half and you don't like that. So make sure you've got an option up your sleeve ready to go just in case.
Alrighty, something our viewers haven't seen too often this season is Dill shushing me after a win in Brodown Showdown, but he's back amongst the winners, ladies and gentlemen. And I did say last week that Skip, I think it was Skip that mentioned, actually, I'm not even looking at Stu's picks. I'm just picking Dill after seeing his 3, and Fortunately, we saw Dewey go down, but Walsh and Cleary head and shoulders above Teddy and Sammy Walker, who were both really disappointing there against the Eels. So well done, mate. How does it feel to get back amongst the winners' circle in Brayden Showdown?
Look, it does feel good, and obviously Reece Walsh and Cleary just were two great picks for me, and it, like majority of people, I think they joined you in nominating me for a win this week, and as a result, they have ended up on the wheel. It will be obvious that your name is not there, mate. You cannot win in our Brayden Showdown, unfortunately.
Rigged.
But you can see those names there: Tom, Cozzy, Skip, Brian, Mel, Tom H, and Maddie P. Thank you very much for commenting. Let's spin this wheel and see who's up for some prizes this week. There you go. The man that picked blindly, it is Skip. Good on you, mate. Skip has won. So I believe...
Can you do me a favour? Can you spin that wheel once more? I'm going to tell you why in a sec.
Do I remove Skip's name? Okay.
Yes.
All right. Yeah. So Skip won our first prize. Do we have another prize? Is that what you're saying?
That's what I'm saying.
Well done. Look at that. All right, Ben, you are our second winner. So we've got two winners. Okay, I wasn't prepared for that at all. So I'm on the edge of my seat here. What do you got going on, mate? What is
all right, have you got my screen up?
I do have your screen up. That's a
all right, so
player. All right.
It's a 9-player. It's normally we open a 3-player unique every 5 rounds. We forgot to do that last week, so I said, all right, we'll get it done this week. Instead of opening up a 3-player unique that I had sitting in my inventory, I accidentally opened up a 9-player unique. Now, I can confirm that there was a large animation, so there is at least 1 diamond in this pack. Skip won the first spin, so you can choose 3 cards for Skip, and then Benny was the runner-up. We can get 2 cards for Ben as a second place getter.
Lovely. So let's go diagonally from left to right, or Skip. So that one there. Yep.
Dylan Brown-Platt.
My cousin.
Williams and Amici Moses.
Not bad, nice. Not bad. Okay, and then for Benny, let's go these other 2 corners for Ben. Yes. There you go, Benny. What is this?
A James Fisher-Harris diamond.
Pretty good diamond there.
Well done, Benny.
Nice.
And an Isaac Tungo. Platinum. I like how you've done that. We've got the nice little diamond in the center. So what do we want to do with these 4 cards? If there are any bangers, we might throw them to someone in the chat. Let's have a quick look. Got a Phoenix Crossland, Drew Hutchinson, Jordan Ricky, and none of them are any good. I'll just keep that, Matty Nicholson. None of those players are any good. All right, so well done, Skip. Get in touch with Dillarai if you want that Brown, Williams, and Moses. Thanks for the support as always, mate. And Ben, lucky runner-up winner. Get yourself a James Fisher-Harris and an Isaac Tungo. It's that simple, guys, to win some fantastic prizes just for getting involved and letting us know who you think will win Brayden Showdown. All right, this week we've spun the wheel and we're picking from middles, wingers, and halves. We've got those players up on screen there. Dill's gone for Terrell May, Jacob Carraz, and Nico Hines. I've gone for Payne Haas, T May, and Jaden Campbell. So we're both
loading up on
a T May in our side.
Good stuff. Oh, that's a tough pick this week. I think it's going to be fairly close. I like it.
Yeah. It could actually be 3-0, 2-1, 1-2, or 0-3.
Great. If 2 of those players scored the exact same number of points and we had a draw, that would be...
We've had a couple of 2 or 3 point margins in the final player head-to-head. This could be our very first draw. So let us know in the comment section. Got Michael Cossi, who selected Dill, Sif Kanga,
nice.
Zon Stew.
Just to clarify, I've got Terrell May in the middle, and then Stew's gone Taylor May on the wing. So let's just make sure that's clear before you decide to comment.
And Rainsy, yeah, spot on. That's about as even as it gets, doesn't it?
Unreal. Alrighty, that is the show. And obviously, if you haven't tuned in until now, make sure you go back and watch the start for our massive announcements. One of those key announcements was that we will be running our 100 subscribers on YouTube competition. That will be collecting entries throughout the week, and we will draw that live on next week's show, which is coming to you the 3rd of September. Who can understand that it is the 3rd of September? That is ridiculous. I cannot believe that. We're already in September, and September footy is just around the corner. So make sure that you jump onto YouTube if you haven't already. Hit that subscribe button. Take a screenshot of your account showing that you are subscribed to us. You can send it via DM to any of our socials at Fantasy Bros AU or over on Discord, or you can email us at Gmail, fantasybrosau@gmail.com. And you can be in the running for some massive prizes, including one of these brand new Fantasy Bros hats that have just dropped, and they are unreal. You do not want to miss out. Make sure that you are commenting. Make sure that you get those likes and subscribes in. And we might even throw up a couple extra teasers for what is going to happen in terms of those giveaways over the next week to get people pumped. I will give you a hint. It won't just be NRL-related prizes. There will be other sports on offer as well. Finally, a massive thank you to everyone that joined us tonight. I know we had a number of extra people in the show tonight, and heaps of comments flowing through, and some great support for the 2 new blokes that have joined us in Haz and Pity. And we can't wait to bring more content to you. And look, I'd love to point out that we are the only podcast/show that covers Game Day Squad exclusively. There are a number of other shows out there that do a bit of everything, but we are Game Day Squad exclusive. That's because we love it so much. So thank you very much for your support and continuing to support us. We really do appreciate and love the camaraderie and the community aspect of it.
Thanks very much for joining us, everyone. Thanks, Dill. Good luck.